Hello, welcome to the Cat House. This is Mr. MeowsAlot, and this week I read The Aquariums of Pyongyang by Kang CholHwan and Pierre Rigolot. The Aquariums of Pyongyang is a survivor memoir, a little different from the academic books I read, but I do enjoy memoirs by survivors. This one is a survivor memoir of time spent in a North Korean gulag. So, Kang CholHwan is from a family that, a Korean family that lived in Japan and emigrated to North Korea by giving all of their money and joining the Communist Party, basically, in North Korea. This was in the 1980s, I think. 1990s is when he escaped, so maybe 1970s, because he was born in North Korea, but by the age of 9, spent 10 years with certain members of his family in a rehabilitation prison. He was in Camp 15. This was a camp mostly designated for people that the regime felt could be rehabilitated and would be reintroduced to society after they'd been re-educated, basically. Now, his experience is a little different because they are seen as, the family is seen as being able to be re-educated. This is very different from other gulag camps in North Korea, and if you want to read about another camp experience, there's this book, Escape from Camp 14. Camp 14, quite different from Camp 15, was where people are actually born into slavery in the camp, and the conditions are much, much worse. Both books are very interesting. Neither of the writers is all that sympathetic. But again, I think you have to understand that the fact that these people have either escaped or escaped the camps, as in Camp 14, or was released in Camp 15, and then both memoirs depict the struggle to escape North Korea and enter South Korea as a refugee through a third country. That's how it has to be done. Are stunning and fascinating accounts, but they're not generally sympathetic characters, these people. The reason is that these people are generally unusual. Most people don't escape. Most people die in these prisons. The reasons that these people were able to escape, with regards to the Camp 14 book, he's an unsympathetic character because he's extremely sociopathic and manipulative. But that's how he was able to escape, by being that type of person. The Aquariums of Pyongyang depict a family that is actually very well off, both with regards to funds, networking, position, and so they had a much easier time of it compared to others. Okay, and so it's not entirely sympathetic, because you're like, wow, okay, good for you, you escaped, but wow, look at all the other people you're talking about in this book. They're having a terrible fucking time. But they were able to use their resources and position to make that escape. And this is what we get. We get accounts from people that are unsympathetic in our minds, but we wouldn't hear about the abuses. We wouldn't hear about the suffering without them. So it's very important to read these books, even though by the end you're like, wow, this is just not what I was expecting. Other books that help you, understand this. An excellent book about time at Auschwitz during World War II under the Nazi concentration camp system is by Primo Levi. And I understand that he's a very sympathetic character in the book, but he I think gets a lot of backlash because he talks about how there were collaborators in the camp, and people don't really want to talk about that. How there were prisoners at these concentration camps that, to survive, colluded with the Nazi guards and with the system itself. But yeah, it's an excellent book. Primo Levi. A good example of this also is some survivor memoirs out of Cambodia during the Khmer Rouge regime under Pol Pot, or his real name Solif Sar. And it's fascinating here because the movie's just been made by Angelina Jolie. First They Killed My Father, and this is the title of the memoir, and it's a very good memoir. There's another one called Stay Alive, My Son. I can guarantee you the reason Jolie chose to make a movie out of First They Killed My Father rather than Stay Alive, My Son is Stay Alive, My Son. The character is just, he's not sympathetic. You don't like him. But that's why he survived. Because those are the people that survive. First They Killed My Father and Stay Alive, My Son are very, very similar in how they depict the Cambodian situation at the time. And I would say also similar with the two North Korean gulag books, Aquariums of Pyongyang and Escape from Camp 14. Very similar in how they describe the living standards of these places. Very, very I read both simply because they are very different in how they depict having been born and grown up and how that will fuck with you mentally, as opposed to Aquariums of Pyongyang, where he came from a position of privilege, resources, part of the communist system, in fact, and then is put into a sewer, but not as bad as other people had it. It's very, very interesting. If you also want to read any books about what life is like in North Korea, for the common person or from an outsider's perspective, there's a book called Nothing to Envy by Barbara Dimick, and also a Russian person who was a student in Pyongyang wrote a book called North of the DMZ, and both these books discuss what life is like for the people of North Korea. There's another book that's very, very good that depicts life in North Korea, and also the ideology and mindset of the people there and how they're being brainwashed. And it's called The Cleanest Race. All these books are well worth reading. It'll give you an idea of what people undergo there. It explains how the famines happened. It explains the brainwashing and indoctrination that occurs, and the sort of God complex that the regime has. If you're interested in some movies about North-South relations, there's old ones that actually sort of started the blitz of movie making in South Korea. About 20 years ago, the movie Shiri depicts a North Korean spy that is a sleeper agent in South Korea, and is intent on assassinating the president. It has some good actors, and one that you might actually know is the actor from Lost, the female actor. She's Korean, a Korean citizen. I know she's done American movies and TV shows, but she also continues to do South Korean movies and TV shows. Another movie that came out around the same time is called JSA, the Joint Security Area, and it discusses a crime mystery on the DMZ, performed by North and South Korean soldiers. Both are excellent movies to watch. There's obviously many other movies out of South Korea depicting the North and South relations, and I fully recommend, since everything's sort of kicking off here right now, what with the Hwasong-15 ICBM test last week, and Kim JongUn just putting all his cards on the table, essentially, and it sort of, I mean, I'm just here in Incheon, and it sort of makes me feel safer, because I'm not a target anymore, really. He can target fucking Europe or North America. So, yeah, there might be some bombs in Seoul. It's a couple hours away, but I think a lot of the bombs are now going to be targeted at, you know, more pristine locations for getting what they want diplomatically. That being said, diplomatically, everyone needs to understand what the situation is in North Korea. I know that the United Nations has suddenly said, oh, we're low on funding now with what's going on, and we can't feed 1-point-something million children in North Korea. Well, I'm sorry, but good. Squeeze that country hard, because if you read these books, that country is ignoring its people, and any funds that come into it are going right to military and research and design. So we are propping up that regime by enabling it to mildly take care of its people, to get somewhat fed. But according to the soldier that last month ran across the DMZ and got shot 5 times and was operated on, they found giant worm parasites in him. He's obviously not eating well enough either. So read these books. Learn about life in North Korea. Learn that anything we allow them, enable them to keep on running, means that we are a party to slavery in the gulags, to famine and death and starvation and the absolute dictatorship and oppressiveness that's happening there. We need to stop it. And that's why it is a absolute fantastic thing that this year Trump has gotten China and Russia and other countries on board and the United Nations to stop coddling this regime, strangle its resources, and push it to the table. Aquariums of Pyongyang, good read, interesting. Keep reading, folks. Mr. MeowsAlot from the Cat House. Happy trails and take care.